Good afternoon. Welcome to what will be the first in a weekly series of legal question and answer sessions. It's brought to you by the law firm of Brock, O'Neill, and Kilgo. My name is Nathan Brock, and I'll be taking the first question today. In the next few weeks, we'll be posting a new post on our Facebook page where you can submit any questions that you may have. I'll be joined in just a minute by two of our other attorneys, Josh O'Neill and Jerry Kilgo. On to our first question. It was submitted by Brittany and Zach Armstrong. Brittany and Zach are 25 and 26. They tell us they have 3 children. They're all 6 and under. Now, Brittany thinks that they need to go ahead and get a will. Zach is not so sure. He says because they're younger, he doesn't really see the need as much. And so they ask, do we need a will? And do we need anything else besides a will? Well, Zach and Brittany, my answer to that is you definitely do need a will, and there are actually at least a couple of other documents that you need as well. First, let's talk about the will. A very common question is, why do I need a will when I'm younger? I've got my whole life ahead of me, and a lot of times when you're younger, I can remember just being fresh out of college, I didn't have a lot of assets to really worry about passing on to anyone else. So even if you don't feel like you have a lot of things that you need to give away after your death, there's still some very important reasons to have a will, especially if you have children. Let's talk about wills first. The will is commonly the first thing we think of when someone mentions the words estate planning. What is estate planning? Estate planning is about passing on the things that you have to the people that you want them to go to in the manner in which you want them to go after you pass away. But that's not all estate planning is. It's also about making sure that you take full advantage of the assets that you have while you're living, and that you're not just your assets, but you're protected as well while you're living. But speaking about the will first, like I said, the will says that I have certain things. I have a house, I have money in a bank account, I have a car, I have collectibles, all the things you have, and then when you pass away, you want them to go to certain people. Especially when you have young kids, it's important to remember that you don't want your children to receive that property outright. When I say outright, that means you don't want them to have it and get them to spend it any way they want. So, Zach and Brittany, one thing you can do is you can put what we call a trust in your will. And what the trust says is that until your children reach a certain age, and that can be 19, it could be 30, it could be 50, you could say they get half of it at 25 and half at 30, but until they reach those certain ages, the money will be held for them, but you have another person that you trust, which we call a trustee, and the trustee is responsible for making sure those assets are used for the benefit of your children, but they're to use their wisdom to make sure they're used appropriately. Let me give you an example. Let's say you have a 15-year-old who's about to turn 16, and he knows that there's some money sitting there in the trust. So he goes to the trustee and he says, I need a car. And the trustee says, okay, well, what are you thinking about? And he wants something that goes fast, something with a lot of power, and it needs to be new. And the trustee says, well, you need a car. I'll give you that. You need a car so you can get back and forth to school, maybe a part-time job. But what we're going to do, we're going to get you something used, and we're going to get you something, most of all, that's safe and reliable. So while the money's there and held in trust, it's used for the benefit of your children, but the trustee applies their wisdom and their discretion to make sure that it's used appropriately and not wasted. And then at whatever age you think is acceptable, then those assets would actually go to the children outright, and they could use them however they see fit and appropriate. Now, the other thing that's really important about the will is it will also allow you to say that if something happens to you and the other parent of your child or your children, for whatever reason, maybe they're predeceased, maybe they're under some kind of disability, if they as well can't care for the children, then you can name a guardian and conservator, or 2 or 3 people to serve as guardian and conservator of your children to take care of them during their minority. You also asked, do we need anything else besides the will? And the answer to that is, yes, you absolutely do. I think our Facebook image may be sideways, but that's okay. You can just tilt your head. We're not worried about it. This is our first go. We'll clear the bugs up later. So, what else do you need besides a will? Two documents. First is a power of attorney, and the other is an advanced health care directive. Let's talk about the power of attorney briefly first. Power of attorney says that while I am alive, so this takes place not like the will comes into effect after you die, but the power of attorney says while I'm living, if for any reason I can't speak for myself, then I nominate someone else to stand in my shoes and to take care of my things, my finances, my property for me, just like they were me, with the big asterisk by that saying that they have to use it for my benefit. They can't just take the money in my bank account and decide they want to go to Biloxi or to Vegas for the weekend. They have to use it for my benefit. When might that come into effect? It could come into effect if you were in an accident, you were in a coma for a while, or God forbid, if you develop dementia. The other document is the Advanced Healthcare Directive. You may have heard that referred to as a healthcare for power of attorney, or a living will. It kind of means the same thing. Okay, and that document says that if I can't speak for myself, unlike the power of attorney, which says someone will take care of my stuff, my things, the Advanced Healthcare Directive says this is the person that I nominate to take care of me, to make medical decisions for me. It also allows you to specify if you have certain preferences regarding end-of-life situations. If you really want to know the importance of an advanced healthcare directive, I would encourage you to Google the case of Terry Schiavo. She didn't have one, and that case really tells you better than I can how important it is to have a healthcare power of attorney, or excuse me, an advanced healthcare directive, as they're called. So, in closing, to Brittany and Zach, thank you for your question. You do need a will. You also probably need those other two documents. And I would say this to Zach. Zach, once again, your wife is correct. I'm going to be joined next, I believe Josh O'Neill will take the next question. We will end this feed, and we'll have a separate feed for Josh. It will start in about 30 seconds. Thanks for joining us.